Hello and welcome to the Soundtrap EDU Summit, where we are all about music and podcasting and amplifying student voice in any way that we can. My name is Matt Miller. I am the host of the summit. And in today's video, we're going to see some super cool, super practical application, things you can use, especially in the music classroom, but potentially anywhere. And if your students are all about popular music, and we know that they are, then this is going to be something that you're going to be super, super interested in checking out. And the guy that we want to explain it to us, to show us the way, is Tyler Swick. And this guy's going to blow you away with some of these ideas. So Tyler, welcome. Thank you for being here. Can you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hello. Glad to be here for starters. But I'm Tyler Swick. I'm an elementary music teacher in Las Vegas, Nevada. I teach in the 5th largest school district in the country. So that's a unique perspective in itself. But I'm very fortunate to be at a fantastic school in Las Vegas. And on the side, after school, I run Swick's Classroom, which is a YouTube channel that I used to just put my basically educational materials on there for free for other teachers to use. And it kind of slowly built a base. We're approaching 4,000 subscribers now. In the classroom, I was fortunate enough last year to win the Heart of Education Award, which is granted to about 40 educators a year. And out of a school district of 40,000 educators, it's a small window. And this year, I'm very fortunate to say that I was selected as one of Yamaha's inaugural 40 under 40 music educators.
Wow.
And so it's been a fantastic, I know it sounds wild, it's been a fantastic quarantine for me, I'll tell you. I don't know why the awards come in once I left the classroom, but at home, I seem to be doing a great job. Yeah, just a little quarantine humor there. Yeah. But now we're in hybrid model in Las Vegas. So we have students in person, we have students at home. And so a lot of my educational practices of recent have been, what can students do while in school that also students at home can perfectly mimic? The biggest gap we're trying to fight is I can teach a student live for 50 minutes and give them the best of my knowledge. And then when I go on a webcam, I'm highly limited into my technical know-how. If I don't know how to do it on a computer, then the students really just can't receive that same attention. Mm-hmm. And so I want to talk today about how Soundtrap is really bridging that gap for me.
Yeah. And we're going to dive right into that. It sounds like, it really does sound like Soundtrap is sort of the perfect fit of that. And I know Tyler's going to give us a lot of those like hands-on practical, show you right on the screen exactly what he's doing. So you don't have to just like imagine it in theory. So that's going to be amazing. But before we get there, Tyler, there are obviously all of these really great presentations, sessions within the Soundtrap EDU Summit. And you've gotten to watch a couple of them and those sort of resonated with you. So I wanted to kind of touch on a couple of those and just see what stuck out to you. So let's start out with one of the first ones that you watched, which was using improv and theater techniques to unlock creativity with Natasha Jane and Batsheva Frankel. Just what's some of the things that have kind of stuck with you to this day after watching that?
I think the greatest thing to point out is that, and maybe many of the viewers are the same as me, where I have been musically minded from about middle school till today. Oh, yeah. And that's been my passion. That's what I've done. The world operates around music. And to see professionals come in and say, what if you thought about it this way? It's just a paradigm shift for me. Things that I just didn't cross my mind. Not that I didn't think they were possible, but just even the opportunity to say, let's create a scene online just blows my mind, honestly, because I've just been so musically minded. And so seeing outside of the box, thinking of, okay, we're going to go in this and we're going to improvise dialogue. And it's like, for me, I understand podcasts as dialogue, but I've never thought about storytelling in a different fashion where it could be recorded, kept forever. Students could combine efforts online. And I just thought all of that was, for me, just a completely, it opened this door of, if I stop music today, I bet I could probably go that direction of like, how do we start making more and more content using just the recorded fashion, the recorded medium?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that whole idea of improv that comes out of, what you're speaking of there specifically, that whole idea of improv is something that I know for me has kind of like frightened me a little bit, because I do like to have control, and I think a lot of us do. But the handful of times that I've gotten to do some stuff with it, it's interesting how it stretches your creative abilities, and sometimes it unlocks things that you might not see otherwise. And I would imagine that could be a great benefit to, anybody in any sort of creative field, especially music.
Absolutely. And I think as a musician, and I just imagine any other musician watching this, if you handed me an instrument, I will gladly make up a song for you. I will happily make up a song on the piano or a ukulele. But as soon as you're like, okay, now you're a character, improvise your job and your routine today, and all of that seems so wildly foreign. But then to become comfortable in that area, I feel like would just be a huge expansion to what we're all capable of. And especially as educators, what could we then share with students?
Yeah, definitely. So that one was definitely a great session. So I'm glad that you got to watch it, and I was thrilled to get to participate in it and to actually talk to them. Another one that you got to watch was the session called "Your Voice is a Tool: Tips for Maximizing Spoken Voice" with Tatiana Rodriguez and Tara Skiba. And that one was kind of about public speaking, sort of, but it was also kind of like ways to get your words to have the most weight, the most power, the most impact possible, and I feel like that's something also that kind of crosses over lots of content areas and everything. So tell me what resonated with you in that.
The biggest takeaway I took from that was the public speaking, but in order to get that far, reading a children's book. And it was such a fun concept, because I realized I had witnessed this before, and I'm an elementary music teacher. UNLV is in our backyard, essentially, and they send their student athletes over to be examples for our students, and they come and read. And it's just eye-opening to see a star athlete, someone at the peak of their game at their age level. And as soon as they have to read a children's book in front of a very forgiving audience, the stakes are just as high as a D1 game, all of a sudden. And their ability to overcome that is what was so interesting, that they talked about how it just really was important that if you can't read a children's book, how are you going to give an impassioned speech about how you did that day, or an interview? And I thought that was so, for me, it was the light bulb coming on, that I've witnessed high quality athletes, struggle to read, let's say, a children's book, but they can do things that nobody else are even physically capable of. And so when they spoke about the idea of practicing reading a book and then listening back to yourself, was such an exposing idea. And even for myself, like, because I create content online all the time, I have to listen to myself speak daily. And I cannot tell you how much I don't like it.
Yep, I hear you. Totally hear you.
I hear how many mistakes I make. I hear the uhs and the ums, and you start to realize how that's just part of our language, how it's become very custom for us to not speak with 100% accuracy, but then just kind of bounce around with these other sounds that we make. And so I just love that idea so much that I thought, of course, students could practice reading. And especially for me at the elementary level, a lot of them would love to read out loud to somebody. So the concept of, hey, I'd love for you to record this. You're going to listen to it. If you love it, keep it. If you don't love it, we got to do it again. Or maybe we can edit out that in the middle. And then we could send that audio, let's say, to a grade level down. And then, you could be recording songs for kindergartners to listen to later today. And so it's just really awesome to see that whole, just the simple idea of read a book, listen to it. Did you love it? And then it's just a very look into yourself of how did that go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. And I think there's also the secondary benefit in that too, that reading is one of those skills that kind of like heightens all of the other academic skills. There's all of the research that talks about the power of good reading skills, and how it helps you to read instructions in other classes, and it helps you to it helps your writing, and just like all of those other things. And so if we're doing that, we're also sort of sharpening all these other things that really just help students be successful across the board.
Absolutely. And in a lot of what elementary music and all the specials, our goal in the elementary school is to heighten what they're learning in the classroom.
Yeah.
So you read this book in library. Awesome. Here's how it applies to English. Oh, you're doing this activity. Okay. In PE, we're going to pretend we're characters of that book. They come to music. Hey, let's write a soundtrack to that book. I mean, all of it really, the goal at least should be just that cross-curricular of how do we keep reading in the cool, in the know. And a lot of that for us too is also just reading lyrics. Yeah. If we need to sing a song, the words are on the board, and it should encourage students of, oh, I really wish I could understand every word that I see up there.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, I think it's so interesting that this little conversation that we've had about these couple of sessions crosses over so nicely into the project that you wanted to talk about. Because after watching this, that was sort of your task for this video, was to say, hey, how could you take some of the things that came from these videos and put them into practice using Soundtrap? And I got to tell you, what you've come up with popular music sounds really so fascinating. And I got to say, if I was, just a regular old student, someone who didn't self-identify as like a musician or like a music geek or whatever, like if I was just a regular old kid, I wander into your music class and you're like, hey, we're going to do this, I would be totally engaged. So, why don't you start kind of explaining this to us? Because I think a lot of people watching here are going to be really interested to see how they can adapt this to their own classes.
Absolutely. So the story goes, and I love this story just because of how true and real it is that when the pandemic hit, everyone scrambled to Facebook groups to see who knows the most about what we could do to make this work. And one day in one of the Facebook groups for online educators, someone just said the word Soundtrap. And I thought, I have never heard of this. I need to go find out what this means. And this was basically midsummer at this point. And I went to the website after watching a little bit of a tutorial. I thought, this is exactly what I need. Now, great. I know how to use it. I've been working in DAWs, whether it's, the bigger programs that you buy for thousands of dollars. I've been working with those for a while. So I totally understood the concept, but I thought, why would a child want to know this? You know what I mean? There's a real passion for once you have that passion to make music, but what is the gateway for a student to want to understand, why do I need to drop loops in here? Why do I need to make the piano sound like this? And so my first thought was it needs to be popular music that students already know, students they're already attached to, already in love with. And it's the same method I use with like ukulele or steel drums, even singing. If we sing songs they've never heard of, they really feel like we're on new territory. But if we can incorporate things they already know, for instance, like kindergartners already know the ABCs. But if on day one we sing the ABCs, they go, I know this song. I'm already good at this class. I'm already a good singer. Yeah. And once you get that buy-in, you go, okay, now let's test the waters of, can we go somewhere else? Okay, cool. Let's return to our ABCs. Oh, you're really good at that. Let's push it to a new direction. So with Soundtrap, my concept was, what if we took songs that students were already in love with, already knew every single word back and front. And in the last couple of years, artists like Post Malone, Tones and I, The Weeknd, all of these people had huge tunes where almost universally elementary school students would go, at minimum, I know this song. And at top level, I know every word of this song and the dance move and the Fortnite dance and the meme that goes along with it. Yes. And just for my age group, it's like that culture is life. Their older sibling does it. So then it's like, well, that's what cool kids do. And so that always comes back. All of that said, my goal was at first to take a song, and Circles by Post Malone was a popular tune at the time. And I thought, what if I could create like a 6-track version of this? Of course, these songs have like millions of dollars of production and unique features to them. But what if you could make like a MIDI version with 6 tracks less, something that a student could really get their mind around? And so that video went out and it had a slow start and then it kind of caught fire. And as it gained views, it was my kind of proof of concept of, okay, we need to run with this and make more videos so that students will have an option. So a lot of people are fans of Post Malone, but for someone who's not, we need secondary options. So the first file I'd love to show is Dance Monkey by Tones and I. So I'm going to click over to it. Okay. And in my background, you can see this is just a normal file. There's no loops. Everything was MIDI created. And so it's as simple as a grand piano, 2 swishes, a Brit pop bass, and beanie bass. And those tracks all combined could make the sound almost identical. Now, granted, we're minus the vocals, but then again, if you're in the mindset of making students create their own, they can obviously add a microphone track and sing along. But just to kind of show off the simplicity, these parts are not as difficult as one would think. And I think that's kind of the magic that keeps happening, is that students or young people think this music is kind of mysterious. Only this artist knows how to make it. And as educators, we kind of have to unlock that and say, no, a lot of people can play this music, but that person's just kind of famous for doing so. And so we just have double stops through here. These double stops repeat in short notes. I'm able to just type them in. I didn't use a MIDI device. And if you're interested in seeing the step-by-step, I have a YouTube video where I show it, and I'm talking to a student level. So it's kind of a really, it's not watered down, but it's more that every click is explained, right? The students who get it, they're allowed to fast forward, but students that are confused, they can't stop and re-listen to that confusing line. They really need to hear it explained in a really, every click has a purpose type of way. And so this whole piano part is really the resounding, everyone knows this piano part. And as simple as it looks, once you could play that, we added some bass lines, we added some snare drums, a hi-hat, and then the bass line, and then the bass, another bass line to make it sound a little bit more party-like. But all that combined really equals that signature sound of Dance Monkey by Tones and I. And so when this video went out, I had lots of comments coming back saying, I used this for my school project and I did a great job, or students saying I got an A on my school project. And it's not that, and it kind of concerned me, of course, of like, was the project to copy a tutorial or was it to make up your own song? That part, of course. Right. But I think if it's a more direct assignment saying create something and here's a tutorial to help you create it, I think that's a nice logical way, because a lot of times the educators who are maybe getting into Soundtrap right now, you're uncertain of what your first couple assignments could be. And so when I made these videos, my intention, of course, being is that a director of a program could say, here's your first assignment, watch this video and recreate Tones and I for me. And the fun part, after I made a couple of these, I started to learn to leave some things to the students' own decision-making. So I was hardcore and like, you click here, you do this, you use this sound. And one comment on YouTube really started driving my new direction. And they said, like, I don't have that sound, because there's different packages, of course. And I was using one of the fantastic sounds and they didn't have access to those. And so they were like, what sound could I use? And that one, it opened my mind up to really, I should just say, pick a synthesizer, pick a sound in this category. And then all of a sudden the students have far more ownership over it. Yes, I'll tell you what notes that are being played, but if you want this to be a piano or an 80s synthesizer or a sitar, that's on you. And then when it's over, in a class of 30, you might have hopefully at least 30 different versions of this song. Yeah. And so I kind of learned to just get my hands out of the details as far as that goes. Yeah. And then as we move forward with the more advanced sounds, and you can see that, so Soundtrap, when we're doing this, I'm like, this is as difficult as I need it to be. We can create a whole entire song and it sounds great. But then somebody requested some more like EDM style stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you get into the gritty details of what you can do to a synthesizer, it was really kind of more advanced, but I thought it was more exciting for the students who were really loving this to get into the nitty gritty of all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This is so cool. My brain is spinning with this whole idea, like, because it makes me think that, you know, whenever students do something like this, and first of all, I love that you got away from the kind of like cookie cutter approach of like, replicate this one thing into make it your own. Because then it's like, I heard somebody say once that if you have, you know, 30 students do the project, you can get 30 of the exact same things. You don't have a project, you have a recipe.
Excellent. Yeah.
And all they're doing is just, creating that recipe and using the same cookie cutter and making the same sugar cookies, But in this case, you have oatmeal cookies and you have snickerdoodles and you have chocolate chip and you have, M&Ms and, all sorts of different kinds of cookies. And some people like the taste of one of them a little bit more than others, but, it appeals to all different tastes. And I've got to think, Tyler, and tell me what you think about this. I got to think that your students are better students and better musicians for having gone through that. Do you think so?
Absolutely. And a lot of, yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of what makes a great musician, is just knowing the sounds that you're trying to create, understanding what sound you're trying to accomplish. And in a room full of students, I could say, how many of you like rock? And a disproportionate amount of them will put their hands up because their parents like rock. And they'll say, how many of you like rap? And the same kid will put their hand up. And how many of you like country? And the same kid puts their hand up. And I go, okay, you have to not like something, right? And at least this age group, they're very like, I love all things because all things are great. And I know as they get older, let's say the middle school and high school range, and they have a more finite opinion, when we say, we're going to make a song by Tones and I, some of them are going to say, I don't like that artist. I don't like that song.
Yeah.
And so the idea of releasing the reins and saying, okay, here are the notes you're going to play, but if you want to make this electric guitar, if you want to make this rock and roll drums, you could be the remixer. You could be the recreator of this song. And I think just that flexibility of, if you don't like the style, please feel free to make it your own. I think that really opens the doors for the students that are maybe apprehensive at first about, maybe the specifics of your project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is so cool. So tell me, after you did this for a little while, how could you tell that this was working? Like, how could you tell that this was something that you wanted to keep doing, other than the YouTube views and the comments, obviously?
Well, the big thing was, and I hate to say the YouTube comments or the YouTube views.
Yeah, that's okay.
The views were super helpful, just that students were using it. And I think as an educator, just as myself, our goal always is to try and reach the largest audience possible. And a lot of times it's the students in front of us. And the internet unlocked this wild frontier for us, this pandemic. And I say this pandemic, I hope there's not another one. But this time at home, where all of us are forced to go online, it really kind of flattened this horizon where we were like, okay, I can teach students in Australia. I can teach students in Japan. And not only that, I could teach students in New York. And so seeing the explosion on YouTube, or even if you just search Soundtrap on YouTube, the amount of creators who are creating Soundtrap content, that was really all the proof you needed that people were going this direction. Mm-hmm. But in the classroom, at school, students were super excited to just show off things they created outside of the assignments. And so for me, my thoughts of these assignments work were when students said, okay, I did the assignment, but then I did something else. And it's like, that was the launching pad they needed to just get out of the book, right? Like, we want students to love math. Okay. We know they really love math when they're doing math on their own.
Yes.
And so I said, okay, we're going to create, let's say, blinding lights this month. And, for week 1, I need you to do the drums and the bass. And week 2, I need you to find a nice synthesizer. But then a student would start class online, and class would start and say, before we start, can I play you what I came up with for something else? And I thought that motivation for a student to say, listen, I love what this is going on. I love it so much. I made my own. So then the best part is you let them show it off. Yeah. And the next student goes, well, they just got to show off what they made up. I'm going to go make up something because I want that opportunity to be spotlighted in the middle of class. Mm-hmm. And it kind of just moved around the room of students that really felt a connection to this, got to spotlight it. And then it became a part of class. Of the first 5 minutes of classes, spotlight. Mm-hmm. If you have something new, if it's 2 measures, if it's a poem, if it's something you've created, if it's you like making meme songs, I had like, okay, I got 7 minutes before we have to move on. And, sometimes it was filled beyond, and sometimes, some weeks were a little bit more difficult if the assignment was too much already. Mm-hmm. But the whole point is that students knew they had this opportunity of outside of class stuff was still appreciated. And I think that's kind of the goal, is that as educators, we're trying to create curriculum. And in these early years, we're going to be wrong, right? Yeah. We're not going to nail it right away. And so seeing students say, like, by week 4, I want to create my own stuff. Maybe that needs to be part of my curriculum of, the first thing we do is you create it exactly the way I teach it. Then the second assignment is go wild.
Yes.
And the third assignment is rope them back in.
Yeah, exactly. I love that so much, that idea of, let them go wild, and then if necessary, bring them back in. Like, I think that so often, as educators, it's our first impulse to do it the opposite direction. Be like, now do it this way, but don't do this, and don't do this, and don't do this, and you can't do this, and this is totally off limits, but go. And then it's like, so what can I do? 100%. And it's like, I think part of that is that sometimes we as educators, and I know I had a lot of this myself. I taught high school Spanish, and I had this a lot too, where I didn't want them to make mistakes. I think I didn't want it to be messy and for me to be out of control. But the crazy thing is that sometimes, just we as humans, adults, children, whatever, like, we learn the best sometimes whenever we get to go do it and we get to see how it turned out. And it's kind of the same way here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, the story I love to tell, and I teach history of rock occasionally as well. And the fun story of like reggae, of like the delay, the famous like Bob Marley guitar echo. And I don't know if it was just the lore of it at this point, it was a mistake. The wiring was wrong, or something was not getting what it was supposed to get. And this delay was created, and they accidentally created an entire genre of music. Wow. Where it's like, these mistakes can be huge. These mistakes can be wonderful things. And mistakes can be what creates the new thing. It's the new look. It's the new this or the new that. But yeah, I believe that students need to really explore. And just as an elementary person, I understand, like, for instance, kindergartners showed up for school for the first day ever a week ago Monday. It was the first time they've ever been in a school building. Mm-hmm. And when they first came to the music class, my thought is, all they want to do is touch instruments. That's what they want to do. Yeah. And my personal belief is that I need to hand them a drum and say, go.
Yes.
Show me what you do. And it's wild. It's insane. But when the student's done, when they've tired out, when they're like, oh, I'm tired, they feel like they got full reign. And then I can say, now let me show you how to do it correctly, or let me show you how to do it the way I do it, which can be very controlling if I start that way. Right. You must strike this way, you must strike that way. They're kind of waiting for, well, what if I have the way? And so I like that idea of that loose, let them go, let them run. And so for Soundtrap, the same possible things of, once they have an understanding of some of these buttons and what they're capable of, the strength of these loops, the strength of just creating a simple drum part on your own, go ahead and make up your own thing. And it won't be, I mean, I don't know, there's a small chance it could be the best thing ever. Yeah. But the best part will be what they don't like about it. When they come back and say, okay, I love the beat, and man, I can't stand the melody I came up with. Fantastic. That's going to push me to say, our next lesson needs to be melody mindful. How do we recreate a wonderful melody so that everyone that didn't like the melody they came up with can do something better this time around? And so, I think the mistakes are where it's at.
Yes. Where it's at. Yes. You could write that down, like embroider that on a pillow or something, man, because that is totally the truth. I totally agree with you there. I'd like to turn this back to the Soundtrap side of things for just a little bit again. Like, let's go here. Well, let's pretend that I am a brand new beginning teacher to all of this, and I look at what you just did and I go, I want my kids to do that. Right. Help me get started. Like, where would I start if I wanted to do exactly what you were showing me? I saw the finished product. You showed me the finished product, but like, if I'm starting with a blank screen and a blank assignment and blank student, well, not blank students, but like, what would I do?
Yeah. So the first thing I do always is, and I've usually am doing songs I've never heard of. I'll admit that I'm very close-minded in my own ways. But for instance, 2 days ago, a student said, I want to learn Tears of Gold. I've never heard of Tears of Gold. You might have heard of Tears of Gold. I'm not sure. So there's two websites I like to go to that help me out. And I'm going to share them behind me real quick. But one is called TuneBat. And TuneBat gives me incredible information. The key, the time, the length, the BPM, and all this other fun stuff like energy, danceability, happiness, the loudness. And they have all these fantastic goals that they can share with you about if you're looking for a specific danceability or however. But what I'm mostly interested in is the key signature and the BPM. So step one is if your file's not the same speed as the original song, there's no way it's going to sound exactly like it. And I know there's getting close, but the first website I like to go to is TuneBat. So I can find out that the song is 150 beats per minute and I'm in the key of F minor. So number one, I can understand if I have students that don't know what F minor is, I need to transpose the song into A minor so that we can play with all the white keys. Or if we're at school, we could play it on our Orff xylophones. Or if we're playing ukuleles, we know the chords of like A minor, C, F, and G, but we don't know F minor. So as an educator, I'd say I need to transpose a song into A minor, which takes me to the next website that I would love to go to as someone who doesn't know this song, and that's Chordify. So Chordify, if I go to the top and type Tears of Gold and select the first option, it tells me the chords. And then if I press play, it plays a YouTube video and shows when the chords hit.
Oh, nice.
Which for me, again, having no idea what this song was beforehand, it's everything I need it to be. It's truly all the background information. So now when I go into Soundtrap with my tempo, I could listen to the drum beat and say, what's the most basic version of this? You know, and most of the time it's snare drum on 2 and 4. And then the bass drum pattern is usually what's unique to each song. So is it boom, cha, boom, or is it boom, boom, cha? And those simple ideas of, you could even put that on the students of today's goal, this week's goal is to just make a drum beat that matches the song you want to have. And even give them the snare drum pattern, it's, oh, click here on this square, click here on this square. That's the snare drum pattern. Where do the booms fall? And let them make mistakes. Let them run with it. Let them make the craziest option. Some student will go fill in every one, and they'll go do cha do cha do. And you're like, that was nice, but maybe there's some silence in there. So with that, the drum beat's set. Then we're going to use our chords. We're going to use the roots of our chords to make a bass line. So F minor chord, we use an F for a bass line. If you're more transcription minded and you can listen to things, you can figure out the true bass line. Or if you're willing to spend a couple of dollars, you could Google for sheet music. And so there's piano transcriptions. Usually if songs make it big enough or students know about it, I've had a ton of success with searching online and just saying, I need digital piano sheet music for this song. Pay the $2 to $5 to get the PDF. And then for you, the educator, you could just do a straight, I play the song directly in a Soundtrap. If it's too advanced for the students, you could share the file, or you could do a tutorial where you explain how to click the notes in on the piano scroll, which is my favorite way to do it. Because I know Soundtrap allows you to use your computer keyboard as a synthesizer, which for me, it's the fastest. And for me, it's the perfect answer. But for students, for me to say, okay, rhythmically, I need you to pound these chords into your keyboard, it's a little too high for full real-time speed. So I just like to show them, okay, find C, click in, drag your square out, go above that, click G, drag your square out. And between those two, grab an E, click, drag your square out, bam, with C major chord. And for the students that are a little bit more speed-minded, I could say, yeah, press down A, D, and G at the same time, you're done. But that's overwhelming for some people. And so just also as a teacher, just providing those options. If you're keyboard minded, please do this. If you're more piano scroll minded, let's do that, because some students are going to gravitate towards one instead of the other. So anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to that point, like if you have all of those different ways to do it and you force them to do the one that's more familiar to you as the teacher, that's almost like telling a right-handed kid to write their name left-handed, right? Like, why would we not let them, if all of those tools are available right there, why would we not let them do the one that matches with their brain the best, right?
100%. 100%. And then let's say if you're at a school that requires you to lesson plan, explaining that those two options are part of your differentiation.
Yes.
So that you have different students with different skills. So here's how I'm applying it. And with respect to admin, this is so kind of groundbreaking. I don't expect any one of them to understand that you giving them two different ways to do the same thing is something that really is allowing people who are able to do one or the other. And it's just kind of, I would take a moment to explain that, or at least in your lesson planning, that students that are able to do this will do that. Students who are able to do this will do that. Both are acceptable. Both will still get the same grade, but it's really student-minded for which one is best.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you have your chords in, you have your beat in, and after that, I have not done anything with vocals. And there's one reason and one reason only, and it's YouTube copyrights.
Gotcha.
So for students who are making this on their own, the last possible step would be to acquire whether they wanted to sing the vocal line. That's the best option, in my opinion, for creating. But let's say they're more computer minded. They're more of an instrumentalist. They're more of a computer person. They don't want to be singing. They just want to create the perfect song. You can YouTube vocal isolations of pop songs. So for instance, I did this with the Post Malone song, where you can YouTube Post Malone circles vocal isolation. And that will just give you Post Malone singing with no background. You can download that as an MP3, upload it into your Soundtrap file, and then Post Malone singing on your Soundtrap file. Which is, and I did that thinking genius, and YouTube said nope.
Yeah.
Because I'd created the song so close to the original, it thought it was the original, which I thought was the greatest compliment I could ever receive.
It is,
was YouTube saying, hey, this is a Post Malone song, and me going, you really think so? Awesome. And so I learned to not do that anymore. But for students and the educational minded, I think putting the vocals in is a nice final touch. The products don't seem quite finished when I'm done with them online, because they're missing the vocal part. So I would just encourage teachers to either have students attempt to sing on their own, or you have the vocally minded be able to sing on other people's projects. Involve the choir, get cross-curricular. We need the choir students to come in and sing these songs, or whatever direction you'd like to take that in. Or the other mind, again, for differentiation, the students that do not want any part of singing could then find isolated vocal parts and bring those in, which then opens the door for remixes. Let's do the reverse. Let's do the opposite. Start with isolated vocals, and you do the rest. You have the tempo, you have the key, and then next week we're doing remixes, now that we've talked about that. And it's just like, it kind of just builds on itself of, now that you understand how to make these 3 or 4 pop songs, I would love for you to create something of your own.
That's brilliant. And with what you just handed us right there, I feel like in some ways it's like there's an entire year's worth of assignments right there. Like, how much music could you potentially learn? How many different, lessons within your curriculum could you teach just within the confines of that, and pulling examples out of popular music and putting them in? And how much would the students adore your class if they got to do all of this stuff with the songs that they love to listen to on their phones?
100%. 100%. And the one of the sweetening elements of no vocals as well is, as an elementary music teacher, I constantly fear vulgarity. How many times the students come in and they go, this is my favorite song, and I'm going, it says some pretty horrendous stuff in the second verse. Or Little Nas came out with a song, and it's like, this thing is riddled with things that can't be said in schools, but I see it all over schools.
Yeah, maybe in a Spanish teacher, more recently though, the song Despacito came out, and I hear kids like trying to sing along with Despacito, and I'm like, do you guys know what that song is? That's like kind of a steamy song, and like they have no idea. It's like the same thing, So I guess if you like avoid it, and in that particular song, if you don't have any of those lyrics and you've just got that like, reggaeton type beat, then, you could recreate that.
100%. And then instead of it being the assignment of, we're not using the vocals because they say mean things, it's we're recreating the vocals so that it can be your song. Yeah. And there's a positive light to saying, we can't bring that original material into the classroom. Yeah. The next level, of course, being, if you have access on your personal computer at home, off of what we're doing here, like, make it on your own, make it yours. But in school, we're recreating lyrics, or we're avoiding lyrics, things like that. But yeah, my way around that with even like Tones and we never had the lyrics played in school. We played the song, we played the melody, never talked about the lyrics, just because some of the stuff is just problematic in the school district and just in general. But yeah, I agree that just the vocal game gets a little weird. So I just want everyone to know I'm not like really recreating these songs in my classroom.
Right. Yeah. No, that's cool. But you're right. It is kind of like the bow on the present, the icing on the cake. It's like it kind of completes it if you're able to do it. So I think that's super cool.
Absolutely.
There was one more thing I want to ask you as we start to wrap this up a little bit,
Yeah.
and that has to do with audience. So, if kids are going to, and you've touched on audience a little bit already about how, kids create something and they want to share it and they want it to be highlighted in class and everything. So I just wanted to circle back to that as we're finishing up, because I can see audience being an important part of this in a couple different ways. For one, as they're creating, you talked about the kid who's going to like fill every single one of those spots with a note, and it's going to, it's going to sound like real like heavy and crazy and everything. I could imagine that in small groups or with partners or something, if they had an early audience, you might even call that feedback, them going, oh, this is going to be so cool. And then they play it for somebody else and they're like, oh, that's awful. And then they're like, oh, that's awful. I didn't expect that. What makes you say that? Like, I would think that audience there would be big. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. But then also, like, what about a finished audience? Because I could see that going small or potentially even going really big. Once they're done with these things they're so proud of, what do we do to give them some sort of audience? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on both of those.
Yeah. So on the small scale in class, online, because of our limited time, as much as I would want to say for every student, okay, now press play. Okay, now you press play. That would take about 60 minutes to get through a whole class. And we had a shorter time than that. So for in person, what I encourage is that they could share their project with friends that they trusted, kind of the like minds. And the reason I like that model is because a lot of times friends would say the positive thing. Some students just don't get along. And the problem with a peer audience is that some peers were just kind of destined to say something that would set another student off. It happens. It's the real world. So the idea of I need you to pick 3 people whose opinion you respect or you trust. And then those people, because they usually had a relationship, would come in and say, like, I like how you did this. Could you? And because they're friends, they took that positive feedback a little better than if it was, let's say their frenemy over 2 chairs over going, I don't like it because it's loud. And, it just caused the whole thing. But for the larger audience, a final product that we came up with was kind of a radio show where we had an end of semester submit your final product. I'm going to pretend to be a DJ. I'm going to introduce, and next up on the radio, this is Ashley's project. This song is called blank, and she made this and da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's hear it, Ashley, and press play. And we just kind of recorded that video together and made it available to the students. And then in turn, the families, we encourage them like, hey, have a night where this is on in the background. If you're having dinner, have this quiet in the background, and then your student can say, oh, this one's my song, turn it up. Or, if you're having a gathering of people, this could be a video you could play to show off all the things that happened this year, and not just your own child, but the class as a whole. And that kind of content, especially now, the recorded content is forever, right? Yeah. Think about like, where's your yearbook? My yearbook is somewhere at my mom's house on a shelf covered in dust. If I needed my yearbook, it would take me a second. But this file is like forever in the cloud. And so in 10 years, if they want this file, if, in a couple of months, they want this file, it's available. It's in their email. They search for that one radio show we made and it's there. And that goes for all of our concerts right now that are being recorded. But the point being that creating a long lasting product, and there'll be a day where a student is proud. Their shining moment was that project they made in Soundtrap. And maybe they don't remember all the details of school, but they walk away and they said, we had this awesome field trip. I once got an A on the science project, and I made this incredible song in Soundtrap. And it's like these moments stand out to them as that's what school was in the future. Yeah. When I have students come back to elementary school, none of them say, I really loved how you taught ta so masterfully. They don't remember that. They remember the days that we made box forts and we hid in the boxes because we're singing scary songs. And so for Soundtrap, it could be the same experience where it's not they remembered every click and every feature, but it's remember that final product was like they finally felt like the producer, they felt like the rapper, they felt like the musician to allow them to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Brilliant. I love this so much. This is wonderful. I'm so glad that we got to do the like deep dive into all of this. We got into all of the details. We talked about lots of different stuff related to this. Tyler, this is fantastic. And we really, I know I speak for folks that are watching too, like really appreciate you spending your time and sharing your expertise with us on this. And I also wanted to see if people are interested in more, if they need more Tyler Swick in their life.
Who doesn't?
Right?
Come on.
Yeah. Like, where could they go? What could they do?
You can go to youtube.com/Tyler Swick. Is a great way to get a hold of that. You can go to Instagram @Swick's Classroom. My Twitter game is pretty weak, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. And then lastly, I'm on tylerswick.com, which is pretty easy to remember. But I have a contact form there, but also just kind of keep that going as a fishing net for anyone that's looking for me. So YouTube is a great way, but wherever you can find Swick's Classroom, I'll figure out how to respond.
Perfect. All right. Hey, this was fantastic. Again, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all so much for watching and for being a part of the Soundtrap EDU Summit. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.